news at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. A historic moment for the auto sector in the United States as 13,000 United Auto Workers are on strike tonight. And we introduce you this evening to a series called Lay of the Land. It's CBC Windsor's newest project, which examines the state of green space throughout Windsor, Essex. And ahead of Open Streets this weekend, we'll give you the chance to see Miss T, the Bubble Queen, in action. It's an auto strike unlike any other in history. Thousands of auto workers at all big three automakers staged walkouts early this morning, which has never been done before, all at once. Their union leader saying corporate greed is the root of the job action, and what's happening across the river may influence auto talks here in Canada. The UAW is hosting a rally in the Motor City right now. That's where we find the CBC's Chris Ensing. Chris, we can hear some of the calls behind you, some of the shouting. What are workers telling you tonight?
They're telling that they are in it for the long haul, saying they don't want to strike, but that they have to do it to get what they want. This is what will happen. Now, when we look behind me here, you have hundreds of people wearing red shirts here out there as they watch speakers from all types of life talk about how this is a specific moment in time that people are paying attention to. We had UAW President Shawn Fain up there, Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer, as well as Senator Bernie Sanders calling on people to take in what is happening against the auto companies, saying that this is a class divide that needs to end. And it's not just auto workers who need to pay attention, but all workers.
For the union makes us strong.
At midnight, a historic move by the UAW. Thousands of members walking out at plants in 3 states against each of the Detroit 3 companies.
We're not asking to be millionaires. We're not asking to join the billionaire class. We're asking for our fair share of the fruits of our labor.
Fain wants a 36% wage increase over 4 years for workers and to eliminate a tiered wage system that sees employees hired before 2007 making twice what someone hired today makes.
Knock out this 2-tier because that is totally not fair. Give us our cost of living because, nowadays, your check doesn't go very far.
The asks come as General Motors, Stellantis, and Ford see billions in profits.
Record corporate profits, which they have, should be shared by record contracts for the UAW.
If we signed up for the UAW's request, instead of making money and distributing $75,000 in profit sharing in the last 10 years, we would have lost $15 billion and gone bankrupt by now.
Ford and General Motors, whose CEO makes a reported $28 million a year, are offering 20%.
We have a very compelling offer on the table. I'm very frustrated because I think we had an offer that resonates with our people. It's a historic offer.
Just a shot over the bow. This is just the union saying we can bring down the whole company if we want to.
The shot fired in America, not hitting Canada yet.
If they're off on Monday or Tuesday, like we saw when the Ambassador Bridge closed, 2-3 days leads to shutting production lines.
Unifor, representing 18,000 auto workers, is standing in solidarity with UAW as they inch toward their own deadline. Unlike the UAW, Unifor has selected Ford for negotiations, saying that they have rejected 2 offers that did not come close to expectations, adding the top priority, pensions, has seen minimal improvements.
We're not close yet, but we are committed to spending all of this time in the next few days to get there.
The contract expires midnight Monday. Workers have given a strong strike mandate. When asked how Unifor's negotiations will be affected if UAW does not have a deal at the time,
it doesn't. They will get with the companies, and obviously with General Motors and Stellantis, we're not there, so this is just basically Ford. So they would extend that deadline past the 18th. Knowing that they're still bargaining, but knowing that, we have to wait to see what the deal comes in over there. And I think that might be the strategy that they're using.
And when we think about the moment that the auto industry is in right now, Meg, talking to Cassidy, he points out that they're celebrating 40 years of the minivan, that the 2024 Chrysler Pacifica's product launch is happening. They're going to start building that this week. And they're also set for a retool. So there's going to be a shutdown that starts next week this time so that they can retool to build gas-powered engines, hybrid engines, and battery engines. All of this happening at a monumental, historical moment as UAW continues to strike. You continue to see the rally behind us here. And I have to point out, Meg, the timing of all of this. It's the charity night for the International Auto Show. So you have people here dressed in red in support of the auto workers talking about how this is a fight for the middle class. And you're watching people dressed to the nines pass by, suits, tux, and gowns. It's a very particular evening here in Detroit.
Well, thanks so much for that, Chris. That's the CBC's Chris Ensing reporting live in Detroit. We bring you now back across the border to downtown Windsor, where the murder and terrorism trial of Nathaniel Veltman is ongoing. The jury today shown video of the accused confessing. 4 members of a Muslim family were killed when a truck ran over them in London in 2021. The CBC's Thomas Dagla has been following the trial.
After his arrest, Nathaniel Veltman made no attempt to conceal from police what he did and why he did it. Following the deadly attack on the Afzal family, Veltman was arrested by London police and questioned by a detective. That investigator testified in front of the jury today. Jurors were shown hours of video of Veltman being questioned, admitting to the detective he had killed multiple people by ramming into them with his truck. He said he'd spent 3 months planning his attack and ultimately chose his victims because of the traditional Muslim clothing they were wearing when he spotted them on the side of the road. It was terrorism, he said. I admit it was terrorism. By definition, this has to be terrorism. I'm not trying to get a lighter sentence by saying this isn't terrorism. The accused described himself as a ticking time bomb ready to go off and said he'd gone down a rabbit hole after the election of Donald Trump, claiming the media had been dishonest in its coverage of Muslims. Veltman explained how he became fixated on a debunked conspiracy theory involving Muslims and the sexual assaults of young girls in Britain. He viewed his attack as revenge and said this was politically motivated 100%. That was at night. Now, the following morning, Veltman is interviewed again, but this time he declines to answer several questions and appears much less keen to talk. The judge reminded the jury, no matter what Veltman said, the evidence has to prove his acts constitute the legal definition of terrorism for him to be convicted of it. And to be clear, the criminal code defines terrorism as an act committed for a political, religious, or ideological purpose, objective, or cause with the intention of intimidating the public. Prosecutors and Veltman's defense lawyers agree he was driving the truck that ran over the Afzal family that night in June 2021, but Veltman has pleaded not guilty to the charges: terrorism, motivated first-degree murder, and attempted murder. Testimony continues next week. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Toronto.
Environmentalists say trees are vital in our efforts to deal with climate change. Although Windsor Essex is becoming shadier, we're still getting a failing grade. Dalton Chen brings us the first in a series of stories that looks closely at environment issues in our city.
There's no shortage of trees like this in Ojibwe Park, but the same can't be said for Windsor Essex as a whole. The truth is, our region has historically been one of the least forested areas in Canada. And local environmental advocates have long pointed out the importance of forested areas in building resilience against climate change.
I mean, there are so many natural benefits from green space, from the oxygen we breathe, for example. They remove carbon dioxide, which is an obvious issue now. They improve water quality as well in terms of protecting areas from runoff. The heat issue as well, right? The temperatures are increasing. We need to protect ourselves against excessive heat, so we need those shade structures.
The Essex Region Conservation Authority continues to give most of the region a failing grade when it comes to tree cover. According to a watershed report card published by IRCA in March of this year, only 5.7% of Windsor Essex is currently forested.
Every area of Windsor Essex that's orange on this map received an F for very poor forest cover. Areas that are yellow were graded D for poor forest cover.
But this stark assessment actually represents improvement for Windsor Essex. IRCA notes that 5 years ago, the region's forest cover was less than 4%, the lowest in Canada. The stat rising to 5.7% in 2023 means there's been more than 7,000 acres of forest growth in recent years. So we're seeing some progress. But is it enough?
That's very slow progress. Progress nonetheless, but too slow in my opinion. We're in a climate crisis, and what do you do in a crisis? You don't go slow in a crisis.
Coronado has reason for his skepticism. The Citizens Environment Alliance has been advocating on these issues locally since the 1980s, as have others. This report by IRCA dating back to 1983 describes the region's lack of forest as a critical situation. IRCA and the Citizens Environment Alliance aren't the only organizations with less than happy assessments of the region's green space. According to Statistics Canada, the City of Windsor had a 29% reduction of green space from 2011 to 2019. That study was based on comparing satellite images of the municipality over time. This sudden graying of the city's surface area has been attributed to a variety of factors, from the emerald ash borer to rapid urban development.
For one advocate, that study brings up a difficult question: how to balance the need for development, especially development of housing, with environmental needs.
A lot of people need affordable and attainable housing, but should it be at the expense of conservation and tree cover and urban forest cover? I don't think it should be at the cost of one or the other. There are triple bottom line approaches, and the 3 Ps: people, profit, and planet. They need to coexist, and I encourage builders and developers to look more into that as opposed to short-term rapid growth, and but balance out all of the community's needs.
It's not all cause for despair. Things are changing, however slowly. The City of Windsor's own assessment of its urban tree canopy estimated total tree cover within the city at 19% in 2020. Since then, the city has spent more than $4.3 million to increase that figure, with more than 2,000 trees planted yearly. And after a decade of debate, major strides have been made since 2021 to establish Ojibwe National Urban Park. But advocates say big steps need to continue to happen if Windsor-Essex is to protect its green space and improve its forest cover.
We are in a crisis. We have been for many years. The science is there to prove that it is a crisis. That's the reality that we're faced here today. And it's not something that say, well, next year is going to be better. It seems that every year it's getting worse.
Dawson Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
Do you recognize this? It comes from a pizza box. Now, in my family, we called these pizza tables. They can also be called pizza savers, and it's supposed to keep your pizza box from collapsing on your precious pie. It's one of the single-use plastics that's still around, and we wanted to find out what would happen if they were to ever disappear. And we quickly found out it's a contentious issue amongst pizza shop owners.
If they are, they're going to be banned.
Yeah.
They're going to be banned for sure.
What would you guys do if that were to happen?
I don't know. Maybe use a dough ball or dough. I don't know. We'll see. Somebody will invent something, I'm sure. We use them pretty well every pizza. We put on, every time we finish cutting a pizza, we put a pizza support on. And it just prevents the pizza box from crushing the other pizza box, because everybody's ordering 2 or 3 pizzas. And our pizzas are heavy. So in order to protect our pizza, you put a couple of these pizza supports on there, and it keeps the box straight.
Okay.
And that's it. There's no special sauce to it.
All right. What happens if the box crushes?
Just kind of flat. It'll smear the pizza, right? It'll cave in.
Right.
If they're ordering 2 pizzas. Okay. If they're ordering 1 pizza, there's no need for it.
This is why the cheese gets stuck in the bottom of the lid, the opening lid, because the pizza gets really soggy and the box gets flimsy from the steam, and it just sag in. And when you stack 3 or 4 on top of each other, it becomes even worse. It's a nightmare. So the best way to prevent that is just make sure you don't put the pizza in a pizza bag. Make sure the pizza comes out while the driver is waiting here, and make sure the pizza gets there nice and hot. And we have warm-up blanket in the car, just to keep them under control. But pizza bags and pizza support boxes are the worst thing for pizzas.
Well, that story certainly made me hungry. If you're hitting open streets this weekend, you're going to see lots of food vendors, crafts, and activities. But you may also stumble across a 50-foot bubble. That's the biggest bubble Miss T, the Bubble Queen, has ever blown. She's going to be in Sandwich Town on Sunday. I caught up with her to better understand what exactly goes into bubbleology.
And when you study bubbles, then you become a bubbleologist, just like a paleontologist or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, and how does one become a bubbleologist?
Well, that is an interesting question. It was all by happenstance. I actually went to university to be a doctor, but now I'm making bubbles, right? That's the way it works. I literally just saw a guy making these giant bubbles on a beach in France, and bing, that was it. I had my light bulb moment, and I was like deep into it from then on. Still am deep into it. I had to research everything, bubble solution, all my wands. So I could show you a little trick if you want.
Sure.
So I'm just gonna blow a bubble inside of it. There we go. Can you see that? And there's another. So there we go. I filled it all up with bubbles, right? And when you're making your bubbles at home, you might not be able to do those kind of tricks.
That's incredible. I can't do that at home.
I bring the childlike child out in anyone. I mean, it's happening to you right now, right? And it's so neat to do that. It's so neat to see how I can create magical moments with a simple bubble. It's like these floating globes of magical moments that everyone needs to catch. And they're just fleeting. They last there for a moment.
Can you tell me more how you incorporated bubbles into a music video with Canadian singer Grimes?
Her agent reached out to me to come and help make bubbles for this one video, Venus Fly, I believe. People were wondering if these were actual CGI, but it actually was bubbles. It actually was my bubble. Yeah, I wanted to show you this trick because I'm most proud of it, because this took me a few years to be able to do. So when you're like making a bubble like that, you don't want to put your lips right up to the tool. So here, to make a tornado, I'm just putting the fog so you can see the tornado form. Now I'm going to go inside and make some wind. And then I'm popping that one. Ooh, we're going to get it to work. First try. And then I pop the bubble at the very top, and shh, what's going to happen? Before your very eyes. I do it. I want to inspire people. People to love the simple again. I want to inspire people to remember childlike innocence, yeah. Want to inspire people to love everyone, and yeah.
There's lots of outdoor events happening in Windsor, Essex this weekend, like you just heard, open streets and the Festival of Hawks at Holiday Beach. If you're planning on spending some time outside, you're going to want to keep watching after the break. All right, I was really optimistic earlier this week about having a nice, warm, dry weekend, but it looks like that may be changing a little. Riley Lachuk is here with more.
Well, Meg, if you're a fan of the dry weather, this might not be the forecast for you this weekend. Today, though, very nice, dry, high weather, high pressure, keeping our skies nice and sunny across all of southern Ontario. But if I move the map out a bit, yeah, you can see what is our next weather maker here. This trough of low pressure making its way to the east. This is our weather maker come Sunday into Monday. So we're looking at some showers through the later part of the weekend through southern Ontario. We'll time that out in just a moment here. 20 degrees, 21 degrees across southwestern Ontario today. Fairly comfortable day today. Fairly seasonal for this time of the year as well. And we're looking at another one of those days come tomorrow, but things are changing. We'll talk about that. I wanted to quickly step further to the east here and talk about Hurricane Lee, currently a Category 1. Now, this won't have a direct impact on southwestern Ontario, but it could have an impact on travel plans if you're heading anywhere to the east into the Maritime provinces. So making landfall as a tropical storm at about noon local time tomorrow. Yarmouth, Shelburne County getting the brunt of that, and then weakening into a low pressure system as we get into the rest of the weekend. So we're looking at some very strong winds and some very heavy rain for parts of Nova Scotia into New Brunswick and points into Newfoundland and Labrador as we get into the day on Sunday and into Monday. So a little bit closer to home here, looking at our forecast for the weekend. Yeah, nice and dry, nice and sunny to start the day tomorrow, but as we advance into the later part of Saturday and into Sunday, you can start to see some cloud cover building in, and there's that trough line of rain starting to bring some of that precipitation to southwestern Ontario through Sunday. Looking like we could see some showers even lingering into early Monday morning. In terms of amounts, really hit and miss. I'm thinking 2 to 5 fairly generally across southern Ontario. Could pick up some higher pockets of precipitation through southwestern Ontario, especially if we see some of those heavier pockets of showers. So seasonal tonight, down to about 9-10 degrees, mainly clear skies, a few clouds here and there through tonight. Warming up tomorrow through the southwest. Temperatures around 23 degrees in Windsor and Sarnia. Bit cooler the further north you go through London and Chatham, Kent. And really that's the pattern that we're going to be seeing here as we head into next week. So 23 tomorrow, some clouds building in with that chance of showers on the way for Sunday. And then, Meg, as we start next week, we get into a much drier and a much sunnier pattern once again.
Well, thanks so much for that, Riley. If you want a chance to see downtown Windsor in the early 80s, we've got a Rose City rewind you won't want to miss. That's coming up after the break. For the first time in the history of the municipality of Essex, partially treated sewage was discharged into Lake Erie. The mayor of Essex says that was to avoid more residents having that sewage back up into their homes when parts of the region flooded at the end of August. The municipality's sewage system swelled to 14 times the amount of wastewater it's designed to hold during that storm. A local environmental researcher says he doesn't expect any lingering effects after the sewage was released into the lake. He says large bodies of water can accommodate some level of discharge as long as it doesn't happen often. We have a timely Rose City Rewind segment for you tonight. In honor of open streets happening this weekend, we take you back to the early 80s. In 1981 and 82, the city constructed the Olette Avenue Mall, which closed a stretch of downtown to vehicle traffic. This piece we're about to show you is from 1983, where residents and council were debating whether they should keep Olette open or consider closing it off.
For all of August last year and again this summer, the barricades were lifted and the cars returned to the mall. Also gone was the live music and theatrical groups.
Definitely closed, no traffic. I think it should be open.
Closed.
Why?
Well, it's easier for when you have children to, get across the street with them.
I think they should stop the buses, that's all.
As you can see, there are some very different opinions on what should happen with the mall. Those opinions are as different as day and night.
The only thing to look at, people would get bored without the traffic.
Many people, including the mayor, felt that the Willette Avenue Mall had simply become a haven for loud cars and loud young people. But the families and visitors are there as well.
Oh, we're just taking a little stroll. You mean a lot of people? Are we on TV? We will be.
I think they should get rid of the cars and let it be a real mall.
Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here next week.